I'm in sound and I got issues.
Oh yeah, those are good because the now there's none of that.
Today's issue is Graveyard Shift Volume 1, created by Mark Poulton and Jon Malin, story/art, Jon Malin, story/script, Mark Poulton, colors, Anthony George, letters, Eric Weathers, and logo by Crash Landon. Before I continue, I'm going to be spoiling the entire thing, and I'm going to be grading it using my salad scale. S for story, A for art, L for lettering, A for action, and D for drama. What does this book get on that scale? Since I have the 2-volume pack, so much story is condensed into this many a page. There's so much story. Professor Vladimir Blood lives in Castle Dracula with Dr. Lilith Mayhew and Sarah Harker. I get so much information in each panel, and each panel just adds so much world building, which each word bubble that's happening, I'm like, wait, what's going on? Oh my goodness, this is happening? But why? And it makes me want to read more. And this is right at the beginning. I know so much about these characters within only 2 pages. Lily is afraid of her husband, Mick Mayhew, suspects he's going insane. It's not explained why she's so scared of him at the very beginning, but as you get further and further along in this volume, you'll learn more and more details about the world, about the characters' relationships, and why she's so scared of Mick. We also established that he's a vampire. He's literally sucking her blood. She's like, it's been a few hours, man. How about you go suck on my neck? And I'm like, okay, how long have you been doing this for? It's just so casual. And he has a little bit of a suck, and then we see Sarah Harker, and she's a monster girl. And she's like, hey, your ship's been prepared. It's time to go. And so they all go down to the hangar. And they all go, and this beautiful ship in really good perspective. And it shows them in perspective to the ship, and scale to the ship. And it's all really well done and drawn. And I'm like, wow, this is a very nice ship. And he goes into the ship, and he's thinking about, and I like the text bubbles, it's like, he's thinking about his relationship with Lily. He's like, oh man, after this, we're gonna have a talk about what we're doing right now. Guess who's on the ship? Mick. Oh my goodness. And then flip the page, and we see this politician. He's like, no more monsters, none of that. And we get to see that's actually Van Helsing. He's the president, and he's all anti-monster, and the graveyard ship is a ship that's floating above the earth. The graveyard ship, they're a group of undead soldiers. Project Wormwood makes all of these people who are dead, manipulates the life force in their blood, and it makes it so they're 10 times stronger than a person. 10 soldiers only competes with 1 undead soldier. It's not phrased exactly, but I remember the ratio. And I was like, oh, okay, these are strong guys. Whew. I can see why people are afraid of them, because first of all, they're undead, and it changes who you are. And Blood, he got a different project undid on him. Project Nosferatu. Just some experiment on the side. And Project Nosferatu is a newer process than the previous one, so it could have been enhanced strength in the serum that he used. I love Van Helsing. In this shot where he's having a bunch of people protest in front of him, rallying them up, as people would say, and he also got a bunch of journalists. Even he looks evil there. But, you know, he's got the public looking good face on right now, and he's rallying people up. He's like, we're gonna get them, you guys. They're the ultimate enemy, and we're gonna do it. And they're like, yes, no more monsters. Right? That's how you rally people, is you have them have a common enemy. I like how he's addressing these attacks on the Congress. This so happened to be the anniversary of the, quote, attacks that happened at his old company that used to head Atlantis Corporation. We learned later on it wasn't an attack after all. Just this one page, I see how much Van Helsing is gaslighting people. And on my first read, it wasn't very prominent, but like I've read this book a lot, and each book read, I get new details. And I'm just seeing how much he's gaslighting the public into being like, hey, they're the bad guys, I'm the good guy. We get a 6-year time reverse. We're going 6 years in the past right now. And we get to see what Atlantis Corporation was like. We got Dr. Harker, who is Sarah Harker's uncle, leading Van Helsing and Blood into the underwater building that they got going on. It looks really cool. Blood is introduced to Mick, who is the chief of security, and he looks very normal. He looks like a person in this one. Versus 6 years from now, in the beginning of the book, he looks like a monster with some hair, but he looks very deformed and discolored in the way that he's faced and bodied. He just overall looks monstrous. And then we get an introduction to Lily. First time that Blood and Lily meet. And I like the drawing of her. She looks very tall. She's a tall, very slender-toned woman. I like how the faces are drawn. She's telling them about this ship that they're building. Turns out to be Castle Dracula years later. She's also really smart. She's good with technology and such. All in this one page with all the dialogue boxes telling me what exactly people are in the right amount of space and words, brevity and dense with information, which I like. I get a lot of information with everybody's relationships just by the text bubbles alone. Blood is here to help get Project Wormwood going. Van Helsing saw him at a universe and be like, yo, I like your work. You doing some blood studies? And Blood be like, yeah, I'm trying to get life force out of dead people's blood so we can bring back the life. He's like, yeah, I know where to put you. Come work with me. And so he does, and he gets his project going, and it turns out to be a really good success. I like the cynical part of this, though. Because of these undead soldiers revived via this Wormwood project, it's now encouraged to let soldiers die in the battlefield. Because I like how it's explicitly written, like, and if we don't have enough soldiers dying, then they can take care of that too. And I'm like, oh, so you're just gonna let soldiers die on your side just so you can turn them into super soldiers and have the ultimate weapon. Immediately I'm like, okay, so this is just gonna incentivize killing off your own men? Weeks later, the West Wing goes poof, and Mick is caught in the explosion. He's all charred up, and then he gets sent through Project Wormwood. And the way that he looks when talking about what happened, he has this cynical look on his face, and I'm like, you totally did this on purpose. You wanted super soldiers. You were just talking about how it's great that you have these super soldiers that are undead. It's okay if they're dead. And then, of course, you're going to go killing your own men just so you can turn them to super soldiers. But it really does something to your mind. It warps your brain to really drive the point home. Van Helsing shoots Lily in the head. I like how Van Helsing's like, yeah, I know about you guys' affair. I'm going to affect you, though, Blood. I'm going to shoot somebody that means dear to you. Blood gets knocked out by Van Helsing, and then that's when he gets Project Nosferatu and turns into a vampire. Also, it's fun at the same time. Mick is being used by Project Wormwood, and then it's critical, and then big ol' explosion. So Mick escapes, Blood escapes, Dr. Harker saves Blood, and dies. It's sad that he dies. But then we have Blood, he takes Lily's body, carries her, puts her onto Castle Dracula, and goes to the stars. And they're like, oh no, Mick's dead. No, that's sad. And they're pretty happy living above the earth. Blood and Lily gets to be with each other uninterrupted, even though she's married to Mick. And then a couple weeks go by, or months go by, and Mick reemerges, and he appears. And he's just going rampant. Eventually in the future, they find him and they recruit him and they bring him onto the ship. By this point, it's the four of them. They had found Sarah Harker, and it was the three of them, and then they find Mick, and it's the four of them. Lily gets wormwooded too. He's able to scrap some supplies together and then raise her from the dead. And is this selfish or selfless? I think it's pretty selfish just because he did it for selfish reasons. And it's better to be dead than to be undead. Who would want to suffer life for longer than necessary? Come on, man. Life is pain. Everything would suck if you were dead, because it specifically turns you into a monster. It makes you lose your humanity. So I would be scared. And he was just like, I'm gonna do it anyway. I love you, Lily. I can't be without you. You're gonna get resurrected. And I'm like, oh no. I don't know if that was the mature choice. I don't know if that was the right choice. But now she's alive. Meanwhile, while Graveyard Shift is coming along, we got the people dubbing them Graveyard Shift. We also got Van Helsing is coming to power. He becomes the president. Instead of just the head of the corporation, he's able to successfully clean his image, make it so all those accidents were done by terrorists, rally people against Graveyard Shift. And then Graveyard Shift's like, you know what? We're going to go against the Congress. We're going to shoot up the Congress. Shooting on Congress ultimately is what gets Van Helsing into power. But I also like how he's shown multiple times. He's like, oh, I'm going to get a snack. And there's a woman decapitated in his car or in his bed. I'm like, why are you decapitating women? And you got blood on your mouth, so it's clear that you're drinking their blood or eating something. You're not exactly a vampire. But I also like how Blood's like, oh, he's a vampire, and he goes up and he stabs him, stake in the heart. No, I'm not a vampire, actually. I'm more powerful than you. And I'm like, oh no, what is he? What is he? He also has created this droid army. That's the best I can call it. It's just basically undead robot fighters, and he wants to put them on every street corner. And I'm like, that's a little excessive. Because what if you use those droids on the citizens? Now that's my concern. I also like how Mick finds them kissing, but they don't know that Mick has found them kissing, which is funny to me. Ultraviolet ray cast on a bunch of these Congress members, and about a quarter of them just shrivel up and die because they're vampires. I'm like, oh no. Oh, I guess it would be a really good profession for a vampire, because you're indoors, you don't have to see the light of day. You could wear a lot of heavy clothing until you get inside, and it only affects you with sunlight. It's not like LED lights do anything to your skin, so you can just be in the Congress. You're already undead, so what are you going to do with your time? Make everybody's life worse? I don't know. It just seems fitting for vampires to be on the Congress floor. Even though the media is portraying Graveyard Shift as this big terrorist organization, there are people who are in support of Graveyard Shift. They're doing the logo of the Graveyard Shift, and I like seeing both sides being represented. And then we see Van Helsing. He's crawling. He's like, my master, I failed you. And the master's like, that happens all the time. I'm not surprised whatsoever. And he's like, but master, let me serve you. And guess who his master is? And this is the last page of the book. It's freaking Lord Dracula. He's gonna come out of the shadows. I'm like, what's gonna happen in Volume 2? And thankfully, I don't have to wait because I already have Volume 2 right here, but I didn't want to read it in order to taint this review. I just am excited. Wow, this is a really good story. It really fleshes all the relationships out as it continues. It establishes a world that I'm like, what's going on here? And I'm intrigued. And then as I read further, I'm further intrigued until the end. All of the pieces start coming together and all the knots get tied. And then we got one loose end that hasn't been tied together, but that's on purpose. You see, that's supposed to be like, ooh, what's going to happen in Volume 2? And I'm excited for Volume 2. I also like how Lord Dracula is like, oh, there's a deceiver among the ranks. I'm like, who's the deceiver? Me is like, that's Lily. Lily's the deceiver. Most likely. But then my second guess is Mick. But then my third guess is Blood. But those are all the guesses. Maybe it's Sarah. Who knows? Who is the deceiver? My first guess is Lily, though. Now it's time for arts. The anatomy is so good. The women are drawn so nicely done. All the men are drawn muscular. And it looks like the anatomy is just correct. And the head to body body ratio, it's correct. Including the hands. The hands are done well. I'm like, oh my goodness. I can't believe it. Hands? I can't believe it. How do you do hands good? You're just that good of an artist. But also the faces. I like how subtle the facial expressions are. I feel like I'm reading a movie, just looking at their faces. Because the faces are drawn in such a way that I can get a bunch of emotion out of it. And also their body gesture, the posture, the way that they're leaning, literally everything. I can just tell what they're feeling, what they're going through. I also like the panel variation. There's a lot of vertical panels, and I thought that was pretty fun. Because it forces me to go from up to down, up to down, up to down, boop, 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 boop. And it slows me down in my reading. And then there's some times where it's the regular, but also there's a lot of cool panel layouts in this, and it's well done. I like how the panel layouts help the flow of the story. It gets me reading, and I would say this is a slow read because I have to digest a lot when I'm reading this, and I feel like the panels help with me digesting what's happening in the story. Just the layouts of it. There's also a lot of vertical lines, especially shading in the line art. Also, I liked what colors were used. I generally enjoyed the colors. I really like the readability of everything in this book. The action, the faces, the drama, just the landscapes are really readable. Everything is readable, and the page layouts really help with that. And I just like a book that's really readable. It just makes my enjoyment higher, and it makes ease of reading more easy. There's also a lot of value variations, and I also noticed that the darker the value is in a certain shot, or maybe it's on their face, or whatever clothes they're wearing, whatever. Darker values generally means more of an emotional scene. Versus lighter values is less emotional. More bright, rather. I guess happy is an emotion, too. More bright of an emotion. And the darker is more of negative emotions, like whether it's worry, stress, sadness, depression, or like just a general monster that's also that's kind of looming as well. That's done in silhouette. I like all the silhouettes done, too. I like the shading style. There's a lot of moments where it's just artistically chosen to do silhouette, because then the object not done in silhouette and right on top of the silhouette is just so noticed, because it's the only thing not in silhouette on that piece of paper right there, in that moment, in that panel right there. The depth of field is so hard to do, and it's correct. Oh my goodness, I feel like I'm looking at a camera with this depth of field. I'm like, wow, this is done really well. And there's multiple moments in this book where you got characters on top of characters on top of characters on top of characters, and they're distinct because different colors used, different values used. And also, I like generally when there's like a lighter value next to a new character, but the lighter value is on the old character, that creates a sort of depth between the two, and that is also utilized in this as well, and I liked that. There's one hand that I thought was hilarious. I was like, out of this book, this one panel right here, this is where the hand is so wonky. It's comically wonky. I'm like, what? Why is the ring finger longer than the middle finger? What is going on here? It just made me laugh. I was like, everything else is so well drawn. This must be some sort of goof or something. I also like the shadows on the face. It's mostly used to reveal an evil intent. Also, this is my favorite page. There's a 2-page We got the reporters and standing in front of the Congress, and we got a huge explosion. And we got a woman on the side, she's getting ripped apart. And this detail is because she's pregnant, of the fetus coming out of the baby. I was like, oh, that's so cool. That's really cool. And then you got the guy like really close to the camera, and I also thought that was really well drawn. This art makes anatomy look easy. Now it's time for lettering. So much onomatopoeia. Oh my goodness. Anywhere I could think of to put an onomatopoeia, there is an onomatopoeia in the good size that it should be. Big, small. I like the big onomatopoeia for the big explosions. I like the small onomatopoeia for the quiet noises. But the size of the onomatopoeia determines how loud it is. And how much it takes over the page is how abrasive it is, how invasive the sound is. And this book does that well. I like all the text bubbles with the dialogues in it, and whenever somebody's talking with emphasis, there's a bold, or the italics. I like that a lot. I also like how Blood has a red ring around all of his dialogue bubbles. I also like how he has red text bubbles when he's doing like an inner monologue sort of thing across the panels. I thought that was pretty cool. The text bubbles are placed nicely. Good flow. Very wordy book. Took me a lot of reads to digest this book. But I'm glad I digested it. I feel good. Now it's time for action. This book's action is mostly in the middle back part of this book. The beginning, it's mostly just establishing what their present day is like, what their present political situation is like, and then how they got there, how they all got the enemies that they got, what they've tried to do about it, and the consequences of that. But what they've tried to do about it, that's the Congress shooting. That's the majority of the action in this book. All of the action beats have a lot of weight behind them. They're drawn with weights, especially emotional weight and literal physical weight. I feel the explosions on the page. There's also the point in which Lily has to be saved by Project Wormwood. That's a bit of an action point. When she gets killed, very sudden. I'd also say the action in this book happens very suddenly. One moment it's calm, collected, maybe there's a bit of tension rising, and then the next, there's a big old gun happening, big old explosions happening. Any sort of conflict has escalated to violence. And I'm like, what? This has happened so suddenly. Oh my goodness. And then it happens, and then a couple pages later, it dies down. And I'm like, wow, I can't believe that action this happened. How are they going to recoup? How are they going to deal with what just happened to them? Now it's time for the drama. This book is mostly a political drama. Mainly between Graveyard Shift and Van Helsing. Van Helsing has the entire government and effectively the entire world behind him. And we got Graveyard Shift. They're as good as 10 soldiers, but there's 8 billion people down there below where they're at that can kick their butts if they all swarmed at him. How likely that's going to be is very slim, but still they are outnumbered, and they have to find a way in order to get Van Helsing, despite all the power, despite all the political connections that he has, despite all the rallying that he's been doing. That is their struggle. It's also political because Graveyard Shift, they're terrorists in the public eye. You know how political terrorism can be. They're using the scapegoat of Graveyard Shift. They're being put on this pedestal of the most ultimate evil that you can be and using it to control the masses. That's why it's political. And who does Van Helsing work for? Lord Dracula. And you know what he wants to do? He wants to suck on that blood. He's been sucking on that blood for however long he's been alive for. I like that. I like how he's not directly the bad guy, but he's in the shadows bad guy. Van Helsing is the bad guy in this book, but Lord Dracula is more like a looming guy. Like, he's like the boss. He's like the final boss, and I'm excited to see what happens. The only people against Van Helsing, seemingly, are the 4 of the Graveyard Shift. Only them. There are people who are in support of Graveyard Shift, but are they against Van Helsing? And of course, we've got the complicated love triangle happening between Blood, Mick, and Lily. Mick and Lily are married. Blood and Lily love each other. They've been hanging out as a couple for several months before Mick came back into the picture. And now that Mick is in the picture, he's like, you know what? Even though the government hates us, you know what I'm gonna do? You are my wife. I'm going to let the government put a bar in our relationship that we are stuck together forever, even though I hate the government. And meanwhile, there's a clear relationship between Blood and Lily. Oh boy, how are they gonna get out of this? So, what does this book get on the sound scale? The story. Oh wow, I'm compelled by it. I'm really excited. I'm uber excited. More excited than most times I'm excited for a comic book. I already know so much about the world, and I just want to see it continue. Oh my goodness. It has gotten me enthralled. I really like how intricate the story is, and how well paced it is, and how satisfied I am after reading it, and also wanting to read more. I'm like, wow, I can't believe it. You did it. I'm really excited to learn more about Graveyard Shift in Volume 2, so I'm gonna have to give the story, oh boy, it's a 4.5. The art! Bro, the art is so nice. Bro, the art is so nice. I love the art. The facial expressions, I'm really impressed with. And the way that the hands are drawn. I also especially love, I just like the paneling, I like the pacing, I like the motion. I just really enjoy the art. The art is masterful. Except for that one piece of art, the one hand. Van Helsing is his hand in the air. I'm like, what's going on here? You took me out of this masterpiece by giving me something hilarious to laugh at. Oh boy, so I'm gonna have to give the art, it's like a 4.75. And then the lettering, so much onomatopoeia. Do I even want any more onomatopoeia? I don't even know if I want more onomatopoeia. There's so much onomatopoeia. I'm like, oh, I can hear the book in my brain. I can hear it. And I like the lettering pacing a lot. I enjoy this book story, and I enjoy the dialogue. Each character sounds different. It's written a little bit differently from each other, just enough that I feel like they're believable, real people. And I care about these people. And I have invested my time into caring about these people, and now I have an emotional attachment to these people. And that's because the lettering is done real good, and so is the onomatopoeia. And I like the onomatopoeia. It really helps me get real deep into the world. So I'm gonna have to give this lettering, it's a 5. Action. Not the most amount of action, but when there is action, it's big, it's immediate, it's jarring, it leaves me emotionally wrecked, and I'm like, what is going on? Oh, yeah, here we go, here's the action. And it's especially supported by all the drama, but the action, oh my goodness, I like how effective it is. I feel the action on the page. I feel the violence happening. I'm feeling like I'm in the world, just reading this action. So I'd have to give the action, it's a 5. And drama. Whew, there's a lot of drama. There's a lot of stuff happening. It's a very complicated book. So much happens within so little pages. I'm like, oh my goodness. I'm left being like, what's going to happen next? I know so much about the world. I know so much about the characters just to know, like, what they're gonna be like. And I'm like, wait, Van Helsing isn't a vampire? What is he? What type of person is he? He's not a person, he's a monster. What type of monster is he if he just goes around taking women's heads off and slurping on their necks or whatever he does? What does he do? The drama has got me rattled. Oh my goodness. So I'm about to give the drama a 5. And so, what does this book get on the salad scale? It gets a 24.25 out of 25. And this has been Mince Got Issues.